AskReddit by J.R.R. What's the weirdest thing you've witnessed in the home of a rich person? Rich grandparents had a brand new house built, had a $100,000 splash pad built for their only grandchild who has never visited them at their new house. Kinda sad. Deleted. My wife's aunt is like this. They're incredibly well off, but she's addicted to getting good deals like stay up till 2 AM because some flash sale with coupons lining up so she can buy 10 bathrobes for $1. It's great because she gives it all away. It's funny because they have more money than they know what to do with. Her husband is the CEO of a very large corporation, but they have an entire bedroom that is just filled with his stuff she buys on sale for pennies. I was at John Waters' house for his birthday and he has a room set up as a lifelike recreation of meth lab. It wasn't a real meth lab, it's an art piece. He told me that when Bill Clinton visited him the Secret Service agents were extremely concerned about the room. So jealous you were actually at John Waters' house. I'm sure the meth lab art installation wasn't the only interesting thing. Tell us more. I imagine it was like all the stuff in his house on the Simpsons episode, but even better. One client had a whole separate house on their property just for their dogs. They'd referred to a dog house and I was expecting like maybe a little building in the yard where they kept their toys or something, but this was a full furnished home with king-sized beds and a huge playroom on the main floor. They had a full training and feeding staff to care for the dogs and everything. They lived in their own house and would come over to visit. Seemed like a weird dynamic to have with your pet. One client didn't have a litter box for the cats. Their cats I guess didn't like using the boxes in the basement and they didn't want to put boxes upstairs, so they put down pond liner and kitty litter across an entire room in the basement and had their housekeeper run a rake through it daily. Like a cat shit zen garden? I was a visiting nurse. I went to both poor people's homes and rich people's and found hoarders in both category. The type of thing where the floor would be covered in products and you'd have to follow a path through it to get to the back of the house. This I don't get. If I were wealthy, I would own like 1/4 of the stuff I do now. My mom was a hoarder and it's a miserable way to live, but I can't get rid of as much as I'd like because I couldn't afford to replace it. Just use and or sell as much as I can. Stuff is just stuff. It crowds out the better things in life. In Naples, FL, I was at a house with a sensory deprivation room. Flat black walls with acoustic dampening baffles. In the middle was a coffin-like bathtub. It had speakers and a flat screen display in the lid. I heard that the room cost over $100K to build. The flat screen inside the tank seemingly defeats the purpose of a sensory deprivation float tank, unless there's some new fancy functions that enhance the experience ? They had part of the house permanently decorated for Christmas and it included a fully decorated Christmas tree that was suspended upside down from the ceiling, which was actually pretty awesome. I've heard the upside down tree thing started because it gave more room to put presents under the tree. My wife and I used to babysit for this wealthy couple when they went on ski trips, etc. Except for the children's school books, there wasn't a book, magazine or newspaper in the house. The man was a publisher. I feel like this is perhaps an extreme version of not taking your work home. I knew someone who didn't like to do laundry, so she just bought new clothes for each of her 4 kids every week. They were always high quality or designer clothes. At the time, all her kids were 10-16 years old. What would happen if they liked an item a lot and couldn't find it again? Why not just teach the kids to do their own laundry? Why not hire a housekeeper who can do it? There are so many options, other than spending thousands every month just to avoid laundry. Plus they rarely donated it. Just bagged it up and threw it out. I never could wrap my head around it. You never went dumpster diving when you knew it was their trash day. I would have lol. I know someone who's worked for a very rich person, probably worth billions. He had more than 100 staff on site, including chefs for the staff, all while divorced and living alone. He had a trivia staff member, Someone hired to tell him interesting facts and stories daily. That was his only job. Someone else was hired to maintain his shoes. Polish, shine, the works. If I didn't hear it firsthand, I wouldn't have believed it. Our CEO has a driver that comes in, collects his stuff and laptop, and drives him home. Edit, he took up the job as a hobby. He was already rich from his own businesses. I love the idea of having a random guy follow me through my home only to occasionally tell me even more random and weird facts he just learned from Reddit. Just imagine getting up in the middle of the night, you open your fridge in the dark to get a sip of milk, and when you close the door he stands there just to tell me duck dicks are corkscrewed. I used to work as a exterminator, mostly pest control. This had me walking through houses from the poor to the rich. One day, I pulled up to a 4-story mansion with more rooms than I could count. I spoke with the lady at the door and got started. As I sprayed, I noticed there wasn't much furniture in the house. As I went, I made a game of counting the furniture I could find. Over 50 rooms and the whole building had 13 pieces of furniture. Pretty odd, but then I went into the very last room, a mudroom right by the door I came into. I stop as I walk in, completely shocked. A full-size adult pig stretched from one end of the room to the other. I'm talking 5-6 feet stretched out across the room. Flies buzzed around its head as it stared at me. Suddenly, the lady, who I hadn't seen since she let me in, says, "Oh, don't go in there. She doesn't like men." Then she walked me out, paid me, and went back inside. This is like one of my dreams. Buddy of mine has a car elevator. Instead of just building a bigger garage, he stores his cars stacked onto each other, like some kind of Hot Wheels accessory. It's very surreal. Depending on the cost of land, this might actually be a cost-saving measure. I mean, the obvious cost-saving measure is to have fewer cars, but if you want a bunch of cars, this might legitimately be the cheapest way to store them all. A full functioning barber shop inside the house, complete with the rotating candy cane outside the entrance. The guy would have his friends come over for a cut. That seems a little weird. Hey man, want to come over and watch the game, have a couple beers, and get a haircut? Unless he's a retired barber. A wine cellar bigger than my apartment, and to access it you had to pass through a room twice as big, with model cars stacked to the ceiling on all the walls. A very rich person I know does not eat leftover food. They will cook a feast and afterwards everything goes straight in the garbage no matter how much is left over. Deleted. Not weird, but a Van Gogh, just chillin' in the hallway. Took a selfie with the flash on, whoops. When I did executive level at support years back, I found a monade angling haphazardly on an office chair in the Sears extra office, which was unused for storage, and had an extra desktop computer I would sometimes use for quick tasks when on that floor. Another time I was admiring a Joan Miró coffee table book in his main office, and when his assistant noticed, he showed me into a side room I didn't realize was there, which had a mini gallery of original Miró drawings. In my early 20s I dated a girl whose dad was rich. She brought me to Thanksgiving one year at her family's retreat in the mountains. While my GF gave me a tour of the place, she showed me her dad's study library, which had a trophy case with about 20-30 trophies. Her dad's name was etched on them, but all of the other details were blacked out, covered up. I was told that under no circumstances was I to ask what the trophies were for, because we weren't even allowed in there. The trophies were for hunting people. I worked for a very self-centered man back in the 90s. He threw an office Christmas party at his house and he loved to give tours. He thought his closet was so impressive it was wide open with lights on and rope barriers in front of the door. Rope barriers. Like a museum. Can't have the paws touching a shirt or something. Now I kind of want to get a rope barrier to put in front of the walk-in closet or something. Not too weird, but I had rich friends growing up and one had 3 cell phones in elementary school. Another had cheetah print carpet in her bedroom, which I thought was the epitome of rich. Epitome of nouveau riche. They have people come their house to put gas in their cars. TBH, I would love that. Hate gas stations. They are away so often on vacation that they have parties every 3 months. Their parrot was so upset with the owner's absence it plucked all its feathers. The owner didn't care. I felt bad for that bird. Now I'm upset about the parrot. Absolute squalor. I run on an ambulance in a decently affluent suburb in PA, and I've been in 2 estates where the inside of the homes were bad enough to call social services. Houses where there was 8 figures of artwork on the property and people were sleeping on mattresses on the floor. It's jarring. Sometimes people marry into wealth, get spoiled, then get divorced and are given a house but no money. My Bill worked one summer for a roofing company in cottage country in Ontario and installed Margaret Atwood's roof. Her place is covered in portraits of herself, like apparently they are all over the place. That is the exact vibe I've always gotten from her. Thank you for sharing this. Full-on Nazi SS officer's uniform on display in a secret room. Harlan Crow says, it's just historical. Strangest thing I ever saw in a rich person's home was a liquid crystal display clock. It was a clear glass block on a wooden base, no visible wiring. The numbers just floated in space. Pretty common, huh? Nope. This was in 1969 or 1970. LCDs were lab magic back then.